Lifetime guarantee. We don't hear about that much today. In fact, when you look at various products that you buy, sometimes it's only 3 months. Our return policies are just 30 days. And beyond that, if something breaks, we're just out of luck. It's so hard to be able to trust products. It's so hard to be able to trust things today. But when it comes to God, He's always 100% and completely faithful. In fact, James chapter 1, in verse 16, we read, "Do not be deceived, my beloved brethren. Every good thing is given, and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadow." God does not change. He is absolutely always faithful. The Hebrews writer would say in Hebrews chapter 6 that God made a promise to Abraham. And in verse 13, the text says, "For when God made the promise to Abraham, since he could swear by no one greater, he swore by himself, saying, I will surely bless you, and I will surely multiply you." God made a promise to Abraham, and the guarantee that he gave was himself. God is absolutely always faithful. In fact, to the Jewish nation, back soon before Moses passed away, in the book of Deuteronomy, God says that if you do these kinds of things, then you will remain in the land and I will bless you. But God also said that if you turn away from me, if you go after foreign gods, then I'm going to give you into the hand of enemies. He would go on to say that they would be dispersed throughout the earth and they would go into lands whose gods they do not know, into languages they don't speak. And God said that that would happen based on their faithlessness. But God also promised that if they would turn back to Him, that He would be able to gather them from even the farthest reaches of the earth. God is faithful. In 586 BC, Babylonian came in and destroyed the temple where God was supposed to dwell. He had left because of the faithlessness of His people. And 70 years later, we read of a man by the name of Nehemiah who's actually in Babylon. And he hears about the problems that are going on in Jerusalem. The people have gone back, but there are still so many things wrong. In Nehemiah chapter 1, his brothers come to him, and he asks about Jerusalem. And in verse 3, he says, "They said to me, the remnant there in the province who survived the captivity are in great distress and reproach. And the wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates are burned with fire." There's no walls. That means there's no security. There's no identity between where the town begins and where it ends. There's no security. There's no gates. There's nothing there to protect Jerusalem. And he's brokenhearted by it. In verse 4, we read, "When I heard these words, I sat down and wept and mourned for days. And I was fasting and praying before the God of heaven. I said, I beseech you, O God of heaven, the great and awesome God who preserves the covenant and loving kindness for those who love Him and keep His commandments." Do you see how he begins? He begins by identifying God who preserves covenant. He's faithful. Verse 6, "Let your ear now be attentive and your eyes open to hear the prayer of your servant, which I am praying before you now, night and day, on behalf of the sons of Israel, your servants, confessing the sins of the sons of Israel, which we have sinned against you. I and my father's house have sinned. We have acted very corruptly against you and have not kept the commandments, nor the statutes, nor the ordinances, which you commanded your servant Moses. Remember the word which you commanded your servant Moses, saying, if you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the peoples. But if you return to me and keep my commandments and do them, Though those of you who have been scattered were in the most remote parts of the heavens, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place where I have chosen to cause my name to dwell. They are your servants and your people whom you redeemed by your great power and by your strong hand. O Lord, I beseech you, may your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant and the prayer of your servants who delights to revere your name, and make your servant successful today and grant him compassion before this man. Now I was cupbearer to the king. Nehemiah was about to ask the king for help to be able to restore Jerusalem. And his entire prayer hinges on the fact that God is faithful, that Israel has been faithless, but as they turn back with a clean heart to God, God is still there. And he remembers that because God did send Israel away, he did send them into captivity, because he kept his promise in punishment, surely he will keep his promise in bringing them back and restoring them. God is faithful, always, 100% eternity guarantee. How wonderful it is to know that we can always trust him, and we never have to worry about a double-minded God, a God who twists words so that we think that we're getting something that we're actually not. We never have to worry that God will change his mind and say, I'm done with you, because God is faithful and we can trust in him. There is no variation or shadow of turning with him. Remember this as we go into this next week, and remember how God is always faithful, and ask yourselves, how can I show that kind of faithfulness in my home, to my spouse, to my kids, at work, or even in the store, to show something of the faithfulness of God? And remember, he loves you, and I do too.
If you would like more information, or if you'd like to participate in our Bible studies and worship services, we would love to have you come join us at the Northeast Church of Christ in Albuquerque, New Mexico.